Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Wassalatu wassalam ala rasulillah wa alihi wa sahbihi ajma'in. Rabbi shrah li sadri wa yassir li amri wahlul 'uqdatam min lisani yafqahu qawli. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Okay, good morning everyone. It's a privilege to be here with all of you, scholars, practitioners, trustees, and people who care deeply about Waqaf. My name is Adam, and I serve as the head of Financial Transformation and Regulatory Administration at MUIS, the Islamic Religious Council of Singapore. Singapore is small, but the challenges we face in managing Waqaf are big and complex, and we can't solve them alone. So our purpose today is simple: to share openly about the pressures we are facing, the gaps we see, and the questions that keep us up at night, in the hope that some of you might join us in thinking about new solutions, new collaborations, and new ways forward. I want to bring you to one of the smallest countries in the world, a place where every square meter is contested, calibrated, and optimized. Singapore, a city where land scarcity isn't a planning issue, it's a national identity, a place where skyscrapers grow faster than trees, and where redevelopment isn't occasional, it's constant. And in the middle of this high-density, high-pressure landscape sits a Muslim minority community carrying a heritage of Waqaf left behind over centuries. In Singapore, a walk through areas like Bencoolen, Kampong Glam, or East Coast Road, and you'll find Waqaf assets quietly tucked between cafes, hotels, and condominiums. These endowments were entrusted long before Singapore became what it is today. When we talk about the pressures facing Waqaf assets in Singapore, it helps to understand how Waqaf is organized and administered. Under the administration of Muslim Law Act, all Waqaf in Singapore are legally vested in MUIS. This means MUIS carries the responsibility of safeguarding every Waqaf, ensuring it is managed, protected, and applied according to the donor's intention and Sharia principles. Today, Singapore has about 91 Waqafs, and although we are a small country, the portfolio is surprisingly diverse. Across the island, Waqaf assets include residential units, commercial buildings, terrace houses, and rows of traditional shop houses, some more than a century old. In terms of governance, about 20 Waqafs are managed by appointed mutawalis who act as trustees for their respective endowments. The remaining Waqafs are managed directly by MUIS, and this operational work is undertaken by our wholly owned subsidiary, Waris Investments, which acts as the owner representative who oversees tenancy, maintenance, redevelopment, and long-term planning. It's a system designed to balance religious oversight with professional asset management. And here's one of the hidden paradoxes of Waqaf in Singapore. Because our land is so scarce, property prices have skyrocketed over the decades. Many Waqaf assets have appreciated enormously on paper. Their land value today is far beyond what their donors could ever have imagined. But the community doesn't actually feel the value. Assets values rise, but the rental income remains almost the same. If you look at the numbers between 2019 and 2024, Waqaf property valuations rose by about 21%. But rental yields stayed roughly in the 1.7 to 2.1% range, barely changing at all. So even though our Waqaf land is worth more than ever, its ability to support mosques, madrasas, and social programs hasn't increased at the same rate. And this gap becomes even clearer when you compare it to the wider property market. For example, Singapore REITs deliver about 6 to 7% distribution yields. That's about 3 to 4 times the yield of a typical Waqaf asset today. Of course, Waqaf is not a REIT. Waqaf carries religious obligations, religious constraints, and restrictions on sale or redevelopment. But the comparisons help us see the challenge plainly. Waqaf assets are rising in value, but the benefit to the community does not rise with them. It's a reminder that value on paper doesn't automatically translate into value in people's lives. For MUIS, managing Waqaf in Singapore isn't just an administrative responsibility, it's a balancing act between Sharia principles, state land policies, financial sustainability, and the aspirations of a minority community that depends on Waqaf for religious life, education, and social support. We are operating in one of the world's most competitive real estate markets, but with assets that cannot be sold, yet must remain perpetually dedicated. Instead of seeing Waqaf as a collection of isolated parcels, we are beginning to see it as a whole, managing Waqaf not one property at a time, but as a unified system, one that can be activated, not just preserved. Imagine aging Waqaf buildings transform through partnerships with mixed-use developments, community-centric spaces, and sustainable revenue engines. Imagine small parcels combined or jointly developed with trusted partners. Imagine design that honors heritage while meeting the needs of a fast-changing city. And imagine governance as rigorous as any investment fund, but guided by the ethics of amanah and ihsan. This is where Waqaf becomes not just a legacy, but a sophisticated instrument of community resilience. Waqaf is an act of devotion, an act of love for a future we will not live to see. And maybe the best way to think about Waqaf is this. When someone creates a Waqaf, they are planting a seed, not for themselves, not even for their children, but for people they will never meet. They plant it knowing they may never see the tree grow, they may never taste the fruit, they may never sit under its shade, but they trust sincerely that one day someone will. And our responsibility as the ones entrusted with these assets today is simple: to make sure that the tree grows straight, grows strong, and grows in a way that truly benefits those who come after us. Before we look further, it's important to recognize that the challenges we face in Singapore echo a wider global pattern. Around the world, Waqaf institutions are navigating tighter money laundering, terrorist financing regulations, and shifting geopolitical concerns. Cross-border charitable transfers, even entirely legitimate ones, face layers of scrutiny, paperwork, and restrictions. The burden of compliance has grown heavier everywhere. At the same time, across many countries, vast Waqaf assets remain underdeveloped, underutilized, or even neglected. Properties that could be serving communities today often sit idle, constrained by governance gaps, outdated legal frameworks, or limited investment capacity. And perhaps the most pressing issue is this: Waqaf has immense potential to address real socio-economic challenges, poverty, housing insecurity, basic healthcare, education, and social safety nets. Historically, Waqaf carried entire welfare systems. In many places today, that potential is still dormant. So these are not just Singapore's questions, they are global questions. Questions about how we unlock the true purpose of Waqaf in a modern world. And that's why a gathering like this matters. Singapore's constraints may be unique, but the questions we grapple with are universal. How do we preserve the spirit of Waqaf with financial professionalism? How do we blend faith-based governance in modern regulatory environments? And how do we ensure Waqaf remains relevant for the next century? And more importantly, how do we collaborate across borders to elevate Waqaf globally? Singapore teaches you something very quickly. When space is limited, you have to be intentional. You have to plan carefully. You have to make every choice count. We may not have large tracts of property, but we do have something powerful, a tradition that encourages us to think beyond ourselves and to give in ways that benefit people long after we are gone. If we carry that spirit forward, if we combine amanah with good planning and devotion with thoughtful strategy, then Waqaf will not only survive Singapore's constraints, it will grow because of them. And maybe that's the opportunity in front of us right now, to show that even in a small city of limits, we can build something lasting, meaningful, and full of hope. Coming from an accounting background, everything I've shared looks at Waqaf in Singapore through a practical and strategic lens. The realities of land scarcity, redevelopment, governance, and what it takes to keep Waqaf relevant in a high-density future. But behind every policy, every building, and every decision we make, there is a deeper foundation a foundation rooted in our tradition. Because as much as Waqaf exists in the modern world of planning regulations and financial models, its soul comes from our deen, from the intention, the ethics, and the principles that define how Waqaf should be protected and how it can evolve. Questions like, when can a Waqaf asset ever be sold? When is redevelopment allowed? Can its form change while its purpose stays intact? These are not small questions. They sit at the heart of how we honor amanah while navigating a complex world. So to take us deeper into that dimension, the fiqh, the maslahah, the classical and contemporary positions on selling, reinvesting, or transforming Waqaf assets, I'd like to hand over to someone far more qualified than me. Ustaz Fatur Rahman, the floor is yours.